This is the Global Broadcasting Service, serving remote outposts since 1928.
Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail.
Caramba, we have something really big for you today.
Welcome, foolish mortals.
Now then, hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
This is the DBC Pod with Phil Schoen and Jason Dodge. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's pod. This is a show for the week of January 15th, 2024. And Phil, Happy New Year. This is our first real show of the year, not
first
a trip report.
Yeah, I was going to say first post-trip report.
Yes, we're back to the same kind of format, and there's a lot to talk about. I know we teased some of it last week, but, you know, Phil, for me personally, as I've been thinking about this show for like the last, 4 or 5 days at this point, I think this might be our first real show. We've been doing this podcast for 4 years, right? We started at the front end of the pandemic, and here we are, the first time we're going to be talking about free dining in 4 years, right? So that's my official, like, it's now all back to 2019 standards, right? We're talking about a free dining release. A lot to talk about, and mostly discounts, money, how money impacts planning, different ways you can think about spending your money in reality versus planning. There's a lot of good stuff in here that I definitely want to get your take on, Phil. And and I think we're just reviving some like old discussions and arguments that are, as old as free dining is apparently at this point. So we're definitely going to get into that. But before we start, we just a reminder of our social media accounts out there: Twitter, Insta, Facebook, or the YouTube channel, all at the DBC Pod. And of course, our Discord server, you can find links on social media and Twitter, or if you're watching on YouTube, in the comments section. Make sure you like and subscribe. We appreciate everybody that contributes in any form or fashion, wherever we may be. But first, or as we go on, what's going on in our Disney World, Phil? And it's the discounts and, of course, the free dining that was announced, I think, like a week and a half ago at this point, right? It was announced maybe a couple days before we recorded the second trip report. And before we get into my first, the question of rack rate versus free dining discounts, right? I have so many more takes for my trip report as I'm just like driving along. I'm listening to our friend Matt at Happily Everything Disney's trip report, and I'm like, I forgot to mention this. And you know what? I'm not going to mention it because everybody's sick and tired of my trip reports. But these are going to be topics that I'm going to kind of bring up as the show goes on. But first, Phil, this is the second time I said but first. The primo topic is rack rate versus free dining. And I think, Phil, the most common retort to free dining is, you're all suckers, it's not worth it. The room discount is where it's at. So is that the most common argument that you see, Phil? I mean, how do you usually frame this type of thing? Because to me, it's weird.
Yeah, it feels like it's gone, almost the pendulum's shifted the other way. When it first, when free dining first came out, there were so many people that they were waiting for that announcement to always drop before they would even plan a trip. And it was almost like them going or not was dependent on there being free dining. And you'd start to get people counting. It's like, okay, but then did you even think about, because you're having to pay rack rate, and then they usually start adding on, well, you had to buy tickets with Hopper and stuff like that. Are you doing the math? Because, either you could just pay for food, or you could even pay for free dining. And sometimes you'd be better off just getting whatever room only discounts were available, and then you don't have to get the make the math. But I think it's almost swung, like you said, the other way, where it's like, why are you even thinking about free dining? The rack rate, because you're paying rack rate and those rates are so high, you're better off just getting the room only discount. And I think, to me, the big takeaway is you need to kind of work it out for your specific situation to figure it out. And I think that's what we're going to kind of get into.
No, I mean, we've got numbers, right?
Yeah.
But who do you think, like, I like profiling people that are having these discussions, right?
Yeah.
Because we're all anonymous people on message boards. And when you are a lurker or just coming to a message board from a Google search or whatever it might be, you start reading through these things and you assume that the people that are writing these are people just like you or similar to you, and or it has some a lot of people have similar situations. And that is totally not the truth whatsoever.
Right.
So these people that are so, anti-free dining, sounds very negative, but they are anti-free dining. They get very, very passionate about not doing free dining. Who do you think these people are? What do you think their profile is? So this is kind of like, as you're out there researching whether or not to do free dining, and you're seeing these people that are against it, what kind of profile are these? Solo travelers? Are they families? Are they, a couple, no kid? Like, who do you think they are?
I think they're the people that go more often. They're more kind of in the weeds. And I think they tend to be people that stay at like higher level accommodation. So they're always doing in their mind the discount off like a deluxe room or something like that. Mm-hmm. Versus I think a lot of times the people that really value the free dining are maybe families with multiple kids and then might be staying in a value resort where that discount on the room isn't as high, and they like the free and maybe they don't go as often. At the most they go once a year, probably once every 2 or 3 years, and they're like, I want to go. I mean, we're just going there to be at Disney and be at the parks, but I want to get my dining included, so it's all more like all inclusive. So I think I kind of feel like it's the more maybe experienced people that go more often and stay at the higher levels are the anti-free dining, and kind of the more casual people, especially with multiple kids,
I think
pro free dining.
Personally, I think the people that are the anti-free dining are DVC members,
mm-hmm.
potentially. They are solo travelers or retirees, right? They're like, we used to take our kids. This is whatever. So they're going down as two people, essentially.
Yeah.
And what we're about to get into is some numbers here. So the gist of it is, the more people that are in your room, the better free dining becomes, right? Free dining scales based on occupancy, and the rack rate discount scales with the type of accommodations and the lesser number of people that are in the room. Because when you do think of it from this point of view, your rack rate discount is only on the discount of your hotel room, right? And that's it. There's nothing else that you can get more of. But if you get free dining, you can fit 5 people in a room or more, if in a bigger, situation, bigger room situation. And they all get free dining, right? So you can do that. So we're going to look at a situation. Phil and I both have families of 5. So we're going to use that as an example. I looked at a random week in July 22nd of this coming summer. And I use some typical numbers. Deluxes usually get 25%, moderates 20%, and values get 15% room discounts. These might change 5% or 10% on that, maybe. But again, it's not going to vary this argument tremendously at all in any case. So
yeah.
Again, remember this is a family of 5 fitting in one room. At the All-Star Music, you have a family suite that's $423 a night. At the moderate level, you have the Caribbean Beach Resort, and that's at $319 a night. That sleeps 5 versus 6 from the family suite, which is actually a steal, by the way. Those are like prices from a few years ago. So if you're looking to go during the summer, Caribbean Beach Resort might be the place to go at this point. And then Deluxe, I found Beach Club at $559 a night. Those are all rack rates. So $423, $319, and $559. If you take a look at the discounts, 25, 20, and 15%. The value resort, you save $64 a night. And if you're only a family of 4, that value rate goes down almost in half, right? So now you're saving even less money. So like 30 something bucks.
If you don't need to be in the suite. Yeah, for sure. If you're just a family of 4 in a regular value room, like you said, that's cut in half or so.
Exactly. Moderates also, funnily enough, also save $64 a night. And then the Deluxe, you save $140 a night. So your total savings over the course of your trip, you just multiply that number by, I'm going to use, in my example, I'm using a week, 6 nights, 7 days.
Okay.
And so you multiply that by 6 per night, and that's your savings for the most part. And then, again, we have to look at what do you get for free dining. And hopefully these numbers aren't too stale. So just to give you an idea, the Deluxe, if you stay at a Deluxe resort, you get the Disney dining plan, table service credit, and the quick service credit, and the snack. If you stay at a value or a moderate, you get a free quick service meal, which is 2 quick service credits and 1 snack with the free mug as well. So the difference is table service versus quick service on that second meal for the day. Deluxe, if you're staying with, I have 2 scenarios. I'm going to use my scenario, which is 3 adults, 2 kids, because one of my children is over the age of 10. If it's younger than that, that's even a better value. But again, for 3 adults, 2 kids, you're spending $342.22 per night that you're staying there for the deluxe dining plan. Quick service, same scenario. It's $218.69 a day. So that is the value you are getting for free. So I'm going to be staying at a moderate, right? I'm a family of 3 young kids. I'm not spending the money to stay at deluxe. I'm not a DVC member, and I'm staying at a moderate. So I'm going to be gaining $218.69. So you go to yourself, okay, well, in a moderate, you're saving $64 a night versus $218 of free value. What's not to love, right? So obviously the big point is $218 a day for free, essentially. But you have to consider the hopper tax. I'm calling it a hopper tax. So at 4 plus tickets, 4 or more tickets, each ticket to upgrade from a regular park ticket to a hopper ticket is $90 per person. Okay, so it's a total of $450 for the duration of your stay that you have to pay more, right? So if you weren't getting hoppers, now you have to get hoppers to qualify for this, and you're getting $450. You have to spend $450 more to get the dining plan. Again, still pretty good value. So again, you total all of that out, right? Again, you're staying at a moderate. If you stay all 6 nights, your rack rate discount savings that you get is about $384. Right? If you do free dining, you have to pay $450 more, right? So there's about a $700 swing. However, you have to consider, how much am I spending on food throughout the week? That is your budget, essentially. If you're going to spend less than $700 for that 6 days on food, you might want to consider the rack rate discount. If you are the type of person that gets quick service meals twice a day with a snack here and there, you might want to consider that. Because again, a quick service meal for a family of 5, again, this is a family of 5, is anywhere between $50 and $65. And that's without any drinks, right? It's water bottles, like literally our portable water bottles, not buying a water bottle and the food, right? However, if you want to get the Disney dining plan, you have to pay the difference between a quick service and the Disney dining plan. And the difference is about $130, a little less than $130 extra. You got to multiply that by 5. So if you want to you're going to compare to saving $384 on your trip versus getting the Disney dining plan. So table service, quick service, snack every single day. Hopper tickets, you are paying an extra $1,200 for the week to go. So saving $384, spending an extra $1,200, but now all of your food is taken care of and you have hopper tickets.
Yeah.
To me, I easily spent about $1,000 on my 7-night trip, maybe $1,200 on my trip, and that's with all quick service meals. We had one sit-down meal the first day that we were there. So that's the math you have to do. So basically, your baseline question is, how much money do you think you're going to spend on a weekly basis? And last year we played Mastermind. We gave each other, different budgets. But realistically, Phil, do you think you would easily spend, call it $450 a week on food? And that's the equivalent of having the quick service meal for free?
Yeah, I would definitely.
Let me say $700 because you got to swing from minus $384 to plus $450, right?
Yeah, for my family of 5, we're definitely spending at least $100 a day on food. So for the week, you're at least at $700 or so, without a doubt. For me, it's more
closer to $130, $140.
Exactly. Food. So I think for me, it comes more down to do we want to eat how the dining plan is laid out, or on the flip side, would it be a treat to kind of get to eat how the dining plan is laid out? Because a lot of times we're like, we might share a meal or do something like that, knowing that we kind of have it prepaid.
Yep.
Maybe we get some more things and treat ourselves a little bit more. So I think for me, it's almost the same question as should you buy the dining plan or not? Are you going to eat how it's laid out? Would you would you enjoy eating the way it's laid out, or would you view it, which sometimes how my mind goes, as like another chore or a challenge where I have to order like the most expensive item, whether I really want that or not, and things like that. So I think money wise, for most people with multiple kids, where you have 4 or 5 people, it works out better to get the dining plan, because you're going to spend unless you're somebody who's, you know, packing sandwiches and stuff like that. Like,
Right,
you know,
of course.
if you're having any kind of meals in the park, you're probably going to spend that much. So it just comes down to, would you enjoy having the dining plan or not?
You can easily come out ahead and buy a couple dollars. I mean, it's literally a couple dollars, because both quick service and table service credits also come with an alcoholic beverage. Right. So that's easily an extra $12 or $15 on top of every meal that every adult in the plan gets, or the kids get. If there's very little, but if you get like there's virgin drinks or anything fancy.
Yeah. Like if you go to a place that has milkshakes or something like that, they're included, stuff like that.
So,
and you do get the refillable mug, which if you're spending time at the resorts, and, you know, that's another thing too. Like normally, like we would just get the free ice water or whatever, but if we have that mug given to us, now it's quote unquote free soda or free iced tea or whatever. Now we're going to be getting that a lot more. Would we enjoy doing that? Would that make it feel more like vacation-y? You know, I think there is some elements where it can kind of make it feel it worth it.
I'm buying a mug every time I go, and it's just one for me because I like collecting them. Yeah. And that's still $21.99 or something else like that. Yeah. I drink that much coffee to pay for itself.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was fine. So again, just to kind of wrap up the dollars and cents of these things. If you are, again, a family of 5, family of 4, it might vary slightly worse in the favor of free dining, but I think it's still you come out ahead anyway.
I think so.
Just for a moderate, paying the extra $450, or maybe let's say a $700 swing in cost versus savings on the room versus dining plan. But you got to remember, you're getting hoppers, right, on top of that. So you have a extra freedom, especially with reservations going away, the hopper restrictions going away. I personally think it's definitely the way to go. Especially, people really need to consider how much they're going to be spending on hamburgers and chicken fingers if they're going to be eating cheaply. A Diet Coke at the Magic Kingdom as of the middle of December last year was, I don't know, like $5. It was like $5.50 or something else. Like, I mean, it's a giant one, but still a soda. You can't get a small either. It's like nothing or a gallon of Diet Coke.
Exactly.
Basically.
Yeah.
So you're spending a lot of money. I mean, I got all my kids ice cream, my wife and 3 kids ice cream. I got myself a soda, and it was like a $40 tab. And that's just at one of the stands at Animal Kingdom. We didn't go in anywhere, right? It's just like soft serve that's being like thrown at us. So I think the value's there. Again, you need to do the math yourself, right? And all the prices are online. You can go, if you truly want to do it, you can kind of go through the whole thing. And you also have to be a person that likes to eat, right? Like if your family, again, everybody's different, figure it out for yourself, but don't immediately discount free dining, but immediately don't go like, yep, free dining's for me. I'm going for it. We're not considering, where you're staying also for the rack rate discount. Okay. So
that's a good point though, that I just wanted to mention about the having the hoppers included, where again, that can make it feel like a little bit of a plus vacation where maybe the numbers work out, you break even, worst case scenario, but you weren't going to get hoppers and now you kind of get hoppers for free, sort of, because the numbers break even. That might be an extra treat. And like now you have something you wouldn't have gotten before. So I think there's a lot of little small elements where, having to do this can kind of give, we always talk about vacation in the vacation, but if it kind of makes it just more flexible and more things included that you might not have treated to yourself beforehand, it might feel like more of a vacation. So a lot of things to kind of weigh when you're considering it versus just saying like, some people are saying like the rack rates are so great, just do that. That's way better. It's like, well, no, the other side, there's a lot of different components to it and you need to consider.
So one of the things I was talking about when I was listening to Matt's podcast was how the hoppers affect your mentality and your ability to be on vacation a bit more. I'm not going to talk about it now because it's more vacation and vacation stuff, but I definitely want to put in a point maybe for next week to talk about how theoretically hoppers can make your vacation even better, even if you're spending extra time on like transportation and stuff like that. Something I never really considered, being an all day, all park kind of guy. I'm drastically shifting away from this, but again, thought for probably next week. So my next point was, now that we've just talked about the value of hoppers, let's compare Genie Plus to Hoppers, just on the cost alone. Which one is the better value for your family? So Genie Plus is an excellent tool. It costs a lot of money, Phil, but you and I both agree that it is a fantastic tool if you're willing to use it to its fullest potential.
Correct.
You can get a lot
Yeah.
done on it, right? But it was costing my family $140 to $160 a day last year. So you look at Hoppers, and they're $90 for a 4-day ticket per person. Whether you're a child or adult, it doesn't make a difference. And if you're wondering, from 1 to 3 days, it was $80 for 2 days and 3 days. It was $80 to add on the Hopper. So you actually get value at 9+ days, at 4+ days to add on Hoppers. And guess what? 9 times 5 is $450. You only have to get Genie Plus for your whole family. Again, family of 5, 3 days to basically be the equivalent of paying for Hoppers. Right. So I kind of had this like aha moment. I don't know why it came to me. I was going for a walk and I'm like, you know what? Genie Plus, a couple days of Genie Plus cost the same as adding Hoppers. Now, my question to you, Phil, if you had the choice of getting Genie Plus for 3 out of your 4 days at the parks or having Hoppers, which way are you having a better vacation with?
Yep. I know it's kind of a cop-out answer. I think it depends a little bit on the type of vacation you want. If you really want to get in the maximum number of rides, period, and that's kind of how your goal going in, I think the Genie Plus is a better deal for that. I think you're going to get more accomplished.
But see, my only pushback on that is if you happen to go during a time of year where it's busy, Genie Plus doesn't let you do that. At some point, when I was at Christmas time, when I went week before Christmas, it was busy. It wasn't Christmas week busy, but it's still busy. I wasn't able to utilize Genie Plus like you did during the summer, or I did the previous year at Christmas time, which was the second week of December rather than the third. So that's a caveat. Make sure you understand that how busy it might be when you go down there. Sorry for interrupting them.
No, that's okay. But I think the Hoppers help if if you're more focused on like having different dining things or seeing more of the nighttime shows and the entertainment and having more flexibility in where you go. To your point, say you start your day at Hollywood Studios and it's just having a rough day, like everything's down. If you have Hoppers, you could hop to another park and maybe get some more things accomplished. But I feel like having Hoppers is more like you want to be touring the parks versus go on the attractions. So I think it depends a little bit what you want to accomplish, but I do, I definitely think you can have a more fulfilling full Disney vacation experience with Hoppers because it gives you that flexibility. And like you said, you could start at we did it that one trip where we only did half day at Animal Kingdom, half day at Hollywood Studios, whatever. You could kind of get more feel for the parks and see different things, more variety. But with Genie Plus, you can bang out, even if on a crowded day at Magic Kingdom, you can get a number. It might not be all tip-top rides, but you can get on more things and stuff like that. So I think if you're very ride focused, I'd still rather do the Genie Plus. But as we've been talking about how our vacation styles have evolved, we might be, if it was an either or thing, we might be leaning more towards trying Hoppers more in the future.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think we should talk about Hoppers next week on the psychology of Hoppers because I truly experienced Hoppers for a full length stay when my wife and I went for our adult only trip last year. We kind of hopped all over the place, right? With their kids, I've never had Hoppers with the kids. So, like I said in my trip report, the bingo method that I'm thinking about trying to do, and with the inspiration from Matt's, how he kind of like bounced around all over the place in his trip report, I really have an idea on how that fixes things. But yeah, I mean, when you look at value, yes, Magic Kingdom is always going to have the ultimate value for your Genie Plus. But at Epcot, even during the busy week, Epcot was good enough to get me a second time on Remy's. It had the ability to get me on Spaceship Earth, Living with the Land, and Soarin' with maybe a max of 1 to 2 hours of time savings throughout the whole day. But after that, there's really not much value because at that point, Test Track was already gone for the day. By the time I got to it, I did stand by for Frozen right after Remy at Rope Drop. That was about a 30-minute wait. I don't think it's worth it at Epcot. I don't think it's worth it at Animal Kingdom. At Hollywood Studios, there is some value to Hollywood Studios. I'm not going to, poo-poo that, but it depends on whether or not you want to go a full day or a half day at Hollywood Studios. So, again, I think hoppers have a great value. So when you think about when you're going to go, are you buying Genie Plus every single day? I think everybody should stop themselves and say, instead of getting Genie Plus, let's seriously consider hoppers, assuming you weren't already getting them, right?
Right.
Because I think there's two mentalities. Like when I was ready to book my trip and I'm ready to plunk down cash, I'm like, I don't want to spend the extra $450. I'm already spending $7,000, $6,000 or whatever the value is of the trip. But then that's all paid for. You not paid for yet, but you forgot about that credit card bill, and you're like, oh yeah, I'll buy Genie Plus today. It's only $150. Oh, it's only $120, and you spend that hopper money automatically. So something to consider when you're talking about that. So my next line of thought in the same way is Genie Plus taking away from the park experience, Phil. So I'm going to give you a couple of different bullet points that I want to throw at you, and you tell me if these are crazy. And this is not from a personal point of view, but more for like how it affects the parks, right? Because we're going to finally see free dining and Genie Plus simultaneous. And there has been speculation out there that the money that people are spending on Genie Plus is being taken away from other buckets on your vacation that you'll be spending, whether it's on more expensive meals, merchandise, that sort of thing. And if people are not out of the parks, sitting down somewhere to eat, they're in a line, they're in the parks, so potentially the parks are even more crowded than they would normally be, which is an interesting question. This kind of popped in my head. So there's a thread on WDW Magic. Is attendance really that low or that high, right? It's a conversation that's been going on in that thread for, I don't know, almost a year now at this point, or 9 months type of thing. And here's something that I'd love Len Test to take a look at, and I have no idea if you could ever figure it out. Are there more people in the parks because of Genie Plus, and the people that would normally be doing sit-down meals in different places, are they in the parks making the parks less attended, but feeling more crowded because the people that are at the parks are actually in the parks and not doing other things? I don't know if there's enough of those to have a major impact in that, but I think it's a question to ask. That being said, do you think there's less money for people doing sit-down meals? Do you think people are sacrificing that in order to pay for Genie Plus?
I think so. I think, and it's not just because of Genie Plus, but I think just everything with the economy and inflation and Disney inflation,
sure,
that everybody has a budget and they can't just keep scaling up their budget. So they're saying, okay, here's our Disney budget. Maybe we up it a little bit more because we know everything's up, but we can't just keep throwing money at it. And so you got to pick and choose a little bit. Not everybody can just keep adding on. And so now Genie Plus is an extra cost. And I think for a lot of people, it's okay. We're going to buy Genie Plus because we want to maximize our experience there as far as going on attractions, but that means we have less in our budget for other things. Where in the past, maybe we would have done more sit-down meals. Maybe there would have been higher, merchandise and souvenir money. Maybe, we speculated this, I think, one time where there were people like outside, like begging people to come into Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. It's like, it's hard to spend $150 or whatever for your kid to go to Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique when you spent $150 for Genie Plus that morning and stuff. So I absolutely think it's definitely not 100% incremental additional profit for Disney. It's definitely at least partially, maybe not 100%, but it's taking away from money that they would have spent anyway elsewhere.
So another thing to think about is the mentality of the guest, right? So everybody hates the 7 a.m. wake-up call for this thing. Yeah, you wake up at 6:50, you plunk down a bunch of cash for this, and then you start whittling away at your lightning lanes.
Yeah.
Having already started the day spending X amount of dollars sets you up for like, I'm not spending any more for today, because now you're making a rational decision at 7 a.m. to buy this versus a spur-of-the-moment decision to be like, oh, that looks cute, I'm gonna buy it, or I'm really hungry, this restaurant looks really great, screw it, let's splurge, right? So these are like things that you're making, decisions you're making in the moment that are being influenced by just pretty looking thing or delicious looking meal in the glass as you're walking through whatever pavilion at Epcot. Do you think that affects people's mentality as they spend money in the parks? Because I think it does.
I think so. Definitely. We've talked about this, probably several times, but yeah, how, versus even before when Genie Plus, you could pre-buy it, ahead of time of your trip to when it was a day of purchase, it sort of sets you off on that moment. Like, well, I've already dropped $150. Like I'm kind of starting behind on that day. And I also think mentality wise, it's like, okay, I've spent that $150. I want to maximize that. So I'm not going to spend 2 hours at a sit down restaurant because that's 2 hours I'm not riding rides and I'm not necessarily maximizing Genie Plus. Whether that's true or not, because obviously you could stack and work around things. But it's like I only have so many hours in the day to use Genie Plus that I spent $150 on. I don't want to take out time to do things like Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique or a sit down meal and stuff like that. So I think it just, at least for me, if I'm choosing to buy Genie Plus for that day, that becomes kind of utilizing that becomes the priority for the day because I want to make sure I'm getting my money's worth.
What about the whole Genie Plus? Because this is something that goes in my head all the time. And again, speaking with my wife about our trip and how my mentality is affected by all this type of stuff, we're all focused on getting as much value out of the parks as possible, right? Because it's expensive. So we're already thinking like we spent this money, we got to have fun, right? But that kind of wears over time as you get closer to your vacation because you're just happy and everything else. So you're just kind of going with the flow sometimes. Mm-hmm. But when you're working Genie Plus and you've said, all right, I spent $150 more in individual lightnings, I'm spending this much more of being in the parks. I think the thought process of I have to get my money's worth is driven even harder because we've said this plenty of times before. Like I spent $150, I'm getting another lightning. I'm getting another one. I'm getting another one. I want 9. I want 10. I want 11. It drives us mad at the parks, right? Do you think for even the average guest or first-time guest, do you think that all this additional cost drives in the more get the value more on everybody? And how does that affect people's composition in the parks? Meaning like not composition, but their compassion or their, love of fellow man, or they get even grumpier and be like, I mean, to me, I kind of think of how like all this affects the system of a resort park. As a whole, right? Because you want to be at the parks as long as possible to get the value of all your money as much as possible. And it's when you pay for it versus Genie Plus, when it was free, you got your 3 and you're like, all right, I got my perk. If I get more, that's great, whatever. But you don't have that cash, that dollar sign driving you further. Like, what do you think? Like when you have that in Genie Plus versus offering free dining, where now you're forced to take a break somewhere and go have a meal because it's already paid for. How do you think that affects you, the average person? I mean, is it rude to say the average person? I guess we're all average people, right? But the person that's not, fanatics like us.
Yeah, I think it can for sure. Like we said, it can start you off on the wrong foot that you've already spent this $150, or especially because you don't even know what the price exactly is going to be. You think it's going to be $120, it turns out to be $150. Now you're kind of grumpy before you even get into the parks. I know someone on our Discord server, Lumpy, has talked about this for a few times, that he feels like the standby lines are moving even slower now because they got to feel like they got to let everybody that pays for Genie Plus go faster. So that puts him and other people in more of a grumpy mood. And I think, whether that's true or not, you could also just have that mentality where before it was like Fast Pass Plus. It's like, all right, well, everybody got this. You kind of pick and choose which rides you're going to use it. The people skipping, okay, well, this is the ride they chose it for. Another ride, I'll have my Fast Pass Plus and they'll be in the standby line. But now it's like, oh, well, they could like afford to pay more than I can. So they get to skip it. And I don't know, it changes the mentality a little bit more. So I do think it just puts more kind of pressure and can, at least for some guests, put more of that sort of negative feeling maybe out there. Because it becomes a little bit more competitive and it comes a little bit more of, I think we've talked about this a few times where there's an explicit cost for something, your expectations go up. And so by explicitly paying for Genie Plus, my expectations for how many rides am I going to skip? How, is that really going to be skipping the line, or am I still going to have to wait 15, 20 minutes? All those things kind of get amplified versus something that was included with Fast Pass Plus. So I think it's just another thing that puts more pressure on people and pressure on the day to kind of work out well. And if it maybe doesn't, it just increases the odds for people to be a little bit grumpy.
Yeah, and one last question on this one. With the removal of park reservations and hopper restrictions, not so much free dining, but just dining in general. Maybe you can add free dining because more people are going to be doing sit-down meals and whatever.
Yep.
Do you think that decreases the usage of Genie Plus when you have free dining, or potentially people thinking about dining because they can go anywhere? They can go to that Epcot restaurant or the wherever
Yeah.
it might be. Do you think we'll see a decrease in Genie Plus adoption throughout the day or throughout the weeks?
It's a good question. I definitely think, having free dining might, because if like you almost have to stop and you have to have these big, whether it's multiple quick service meals or table service meal, like you almost have to allocate more time in your day for dining, which again reduces the available time for attractions. So maybe people are like, well, it's really not going to be worth it for me to get Genie Plus because I got to make sure I take advantage of the dining I have. Hopper restrictions, definitely people are going to be hopping more to try to find slow times. So I think I don't see how, the only way I could see it increasing it is for some of those like super users that try to really, hop and then stacking Genie Plus at the second
Sure.
park and stuff like that. But I would think for the majority of guests, if it has an impact, it would reduce it a little bit.
Yeah, because right now most travel agents will tell you that hopper tickets are down, or the use of hoppers are down, and there's a big guess that it's because of the restrictions. People don't want to bother with the restrictions. But the also question is, did the cost of Genie Plus take away the dollars that you would have spent on hoppers?
For sure.
So without free dining, I'm curious to see if we will see more dining, and if you could have some kind of connection between the rise of dining and the lowering of Genie Plus sales. I wonder if there's going to be a correlation there. There's no way that we can tell, but I'm curious if that's kind of going to happen. So this year, at some point, we're going to get a Genie Plus announcement, right? That's kind of whirling in the wind. Everybody's talking about pre-purchase, the 7 a.m., whatever. And, the guest satisfaction scores are very, very low for Genie Plus. And I think those are the two big pain points, right? Cost, 7 a.m. and, yeah, that's basically it. So, or in the pre-booking, excuse me.
Yeah.
So this is basically going to look like probably closer to free Fast Pass Plus from 4 years ago versus whatever we have now in Genie Plus.
Correct.
So here's something I want you to consider, and let me know what your opinion is on this. And because again, I was thinking about this week, because this is what I do during the when I'm not doing class. I think about Disney things. So in Genie Plus, when you start at 7 a.m. and you don't stop throughout the rest of the day. You're constantly planning, constantly modifying, constantly refreshing, constantly thinking about how to get more Genie Plus if you want to fully maximize it. Maybe you're not doing that. Maybe you're just doing it every 2 hours and you just don't care, whatever it might be. However, you start at 7 a.m. and you don't stop until you go home for the day. With Fast Pass Plus, you did all of your all of your Fast Pass Plus advanced booking at 30 or 60 days in advance. And typically, even if you were maximizing the system and you knew exactly how to do everything, you would typically leave the first hour of the parks for rope drop and running around, getting on lower standbys. Let's say if the park opened at 9, you would want your first Fast Pass window to be 9:30 to 10:30, essentially, about a half hour after park opened, if you can. And then you just book them for every hour after that, because you can never overlap Fast Passes. So if it's 9:30 to 10:30, your next one had to be at 10:30, the next one had to be at 11:30. And then once you get done with all three, then you could start refreshing and get your fourth, then your fifth, then your sixth. But the one thing I realized, Phil, as I was thinking about this, even if you were able to book them all within a 3-hour span, which is sometimes tricky, that still brought you to lunchtime, right? Where you didn't even have to think about refreshing. So not only were you able to wake up stress-free, you were able to go through your first half of the day stress-free, because knowing that they were already set. And then you didn't have to worry about whatever your next one was until like 1 o'clock or so, 12, 1, 2 o'clock, depending. How do you contrast that in your head now, putting it in that time, that frame of reference where Genie Plus, you're already starting to work, versus Fast Pass Plus, where you had half the day with a lot of these project management conundrums that we talk about?
Yep.
So what do you think? I mean, is that something that has some heft to it as a discussion point?
I think it might, definitely for some people. I know Mama of Six on our Discord is really, she's one that is really hoping that we go back to a model where you do get the 3 that you make ahead of time. I know a lot of people are just like, well, let's maybe just do your 7 a.m. one, replace that one, do it ahead of time. And the reason was for her family, it really helped, was a benefit to have a good chunk of that day mapped out and kind of known go into, like, this is our schedule. These are the things we have set, maybe a meal as well. And it kind of eased the rest of the day. And I think I kind of agree with that mentality, because I knew where, even if we were staying off site and we couldn't get all the good FastPass Pluses, at least we knew ahead of time, here's what we got, here's what we didn't get. So we can kind of prioritize maybe some of the things we didn't get. We'll do that at Rope Drop or whatever. It just, like, we had a plan going into the day, and the day became more about execution, less about planning. And I think that just makes it a lot easier in my mind to go through your day and not stress as much.
Because I was going to say, like, I don't really care about, I mean, I care about it, but I don't really care about the planning aspect of it. Like,
yeah.
But even if, I mean, I would say the two different points were, let's say for whatever reason, Genie Plus, you could not book your first Genie Plus until 1 p.m. So you were forced to go to the first half of the day at the park, all standby, right? Everybody was, right? Everybody was on the same ground. To me, that is just as less stressful. Or that is the same amount of stress, I guess, or no stress compared to FastPass Plus, because the first half of your day was, you didn't have to make any decisions other than go ride rides, have fun, and be with your family.
Right.
With Genie Plus starting at 7 a.m., to me, it's like you're constantly thinking about this touring puzzle, which I don't like. Do you think that any of the changes, do you think there's a possibility that they might add additional inventory to Lightning Lanes while eliminating some maybe DAS abuse, and then go back to the ability to have a ride multiple times throughout the day? Do you think that's in the future?
I don't know. I guess I'd have to see what their views are and satisfaction about that, and if it really did keep things free. I don't know why they have that rule. If somebody wants to ride Big Thunder Mountain, and as long as they're following the 2-hour rules or whatever, why can't they ride it multiple times? I never quite understood that one. I guess just the biggest rides, they wanted to have more people have a chance to get that. But I think they could go back to that, especially if they could add some more inventory, or just if they maybe see that Genie Plus is going down, less people are using it. But I never understood why they didn't have that rule anyway. So it's hard for me to say.
As I dislike not being able to go on a second ride, even if it's like, let's say it's a low inventory ride, but my kids love the Mermaid ride as much as people disparage it. They love it at the Magic Kingdom, and that always shows Lightning Lane availability, even on the busiest nights throughout the day. So why can't I book it with Genie Plus, tap in, and if it's still available for like instant usage, why can't I use it again? Because it's going away, right? So the reason why I bring this up is because another thing I don't like about Genie Plus, and I hope they change, because we're now comparing it to FastPass Plus, because this Genie Plus is morphing into FastPass Plus, I think. So again, another point I bring up is the time crunch. So here's a scenario I was talking about on some message board somewhere. And let's say it's midday, anywhere between like 12 to 4 o'clock.
Okay.
And you're booking your fast pass, your window's open, and you have a choice, Phil. Let me know what choice you would make. You have a you can get a Dumbo Lightning Lane for an hour and a half from now, or you can get a Pirates Lightning Lane, which is a more desired ride, in your opinion, for 4.5 hours from now. What choice would you make, and why? Both rides you want to go in, but you weight Pirates more than Dumbo.
So I'd probably, that big of a gap, I probably would pick Dumbo.
Yes,
assuming the scenario, like you said, where they're both rides we want to go on. Like, Dumbo's kind of in reality, more of a I could take it or leave it type attraction. But assuming it was two rides that, one's
pick whatever ride, right?
Whatever it is. So I would think, as long as it was a ride that was, kind of, this is something we do want to get on this trip, I would pick the one coming up in an hour and a half, because I'd want to do that and then start working on my next one.
Well, I would agree too, and I don't like that I have to make that decision, because I'm like, I can get my next one in 30 minutes, and maybe something else will open up, and I can get on there. Because now you're constantly fighting and gaming that 2-hour window, right?
Yeah.
I do not like making that choice, because now if what happens in an hour and a half, Pirates is no longer available for the day, or it's even later in that I have a dining reservation, or I'm not going to be in that park, or I mean, like any number of reasons why a later time is undesirable. I hate that feeling of being trapped versus efficiency versus what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. So I hope something kind of affects change on that. I very much doubt it. But again, we're talking FastPass Plus and Genie Plus. Those are some of the things that, I hate, because there's nothing that's going to feel worse than like, all right, I'm going to go with the more efficient thing, book Dumbo. And then after an hour and a half, you tap in and you're like, Pirates is no longer available. And then you're like, I just wasted my money and I hate this. Right. Yeah. So I dislike that completely. Moving on to our last bit of thing I want to talk about. And Phil, I need your guesswork here. So Len Testa and a couple people have been teasing on message boards that there's some announcement coming up, right? And there's also hinting that it's not a Genie Plus announcement. There's something kind of floating out there. So I messaged Len Testa on WDW Magic Forums and says, saw your post. Any chance of hints or speculation of what this might be? And he says, no, you can't tell me, because he doesn't want to spoil somebody else's scoop, which I respect and appreciate his protecting that person's livelihood or professional whatever job. And I was like, all right, never hurts to ask. So Phil, I wanted you to speculate. What do you think this might be? Because this is going to tie into our game, I think.
So my first thought is something, I guess, maybe broadly entertainment, but more specifically parade related for the summer. Whether it's a new parade, a night parade.
Man, you're going back to those night parades.
I don't know, something like that. I guess I'm trying to think of something that's reasonable that could be announced. That's not like, a fifth gate or something like that. And I do think summer might be slow this year. And so I think they're going to try to figure out what can we do for the summer to boost bookings.
Yeah, because it's not an attraction announcement, because anything they announce is not. I think it's something that's going to impact the parks within this year when the announcement, like coming this summer or whatever.
And just the way it was worded, I don't think it's related to anything existing. It's not like the opening date for Tiana Bayou Adventures. Like it's something new, additional for the parks to try to draw people in for, say, the summer. So that's why the first thing that came to mind was something parade related.
Do you think a parade is enough to draw people to the parks and have people book things though?
I think it's something. I think some people really are into it. I think a nighttime parade would get people. If they announced Paint the Night was coming to the Magic Kingdom in the summer, I think there would be people that would book to do that. At least people that were maybe on the fence, it would push them over the edge.
Do you think that there's a night parade that's coming to Magic Kingdom and nowhere else?
You mean versus, or if it's either at
versus
Magic
one
Kingdom
of the other parks? Any of the other parks?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's most likely that. I mean, I guess when I went more broadly entertainment, maybe it could be that they're going to put some sort of show at Animal Kingdom and again try to keep that open later. Otherwise, maybe some sort of cavalcade at Hollywood Studios, but I think those are. I still, if it's a parade, I still think it's most likely Magic Kingdom. But maybe it could be something at Animal Kingdom.
If there's a rumor or hype going around it, I don't think it's a cavalcade because that's not rumors, right?
Exactly.
I don't think so. We speculated something. We were talking about this before the announcements of like some of the extra hour parties and the enchantments coming back. That was something that was being hinted around, and I never saw that coming. And I thought that was kind of lame as a rumor. The only reason why I don't think any nighttime parade or entertainment is coming to Magic Kingdom because I think they want something to get people the heck out of Magic Kingdom and not give people a reason to hop to a Magic Kingdom, and crowd that park up because that's already a mess at any time of the year at night to see Happily Ever After. So I think they want to try to give people an alternative for an interesting thing somewhere else. So if it's going to be entertainment, I think it's going to be that's a good guess. I think it's going to be somewhere else. The only other thing I think that they can do is announce something that has to do with money. And I think it's going to be some kind, it could be, I don't think so, but like, I think it could be some kind of, experience or something that you could book that goes to Disney World, but at a reduced cost. Because if bookings are soft, I don't think people are going down just for an extra 5% discount or free dining might get people back, but I don't think it's going to get enough people back that they're going to be able to fill the additional margin, right? Because I think it's always going to be cost. It'd be interesting to see if they have some kind of, new annual pass or new multi-vacation type. There might be a vehicle to get people back down there because I don't think a majority of people are going to go to increase the margin significantly that are going because of a parade. Is a parade going to get people back somewhere? Yes, it will attract more people there. But is it going to be enough to fill the hotels and the parks for the summer? I don't think so. I mean, being 5 or 6 months out at this point, I don't think it's going to be like, well, I wasn't going to Disney World. Oh, but they're having a parade the one night that we're going to be there. I don't think that's going to have them go spend $6,000 to go to Disney World.
Yeah, fair.
Right. So I don't know what I am completely flabbergasted. I think it's just going to be something that we're not expecting that's going to have an immediate impact. That's going to cost Disney little money to invest in. So I think it's going to be more different levers that they have that are switching. Maybe they're opening up a building that with a new restaurant or something. They're going to do something with like Stitch's Great Escape or something else. Like they announced the Mermaid Show at Hollywood Studios is opening up sometime this year, probably later this year. I think it's going to be somewhere around that vein. But again, this rumor's been boiling around long enough that I'd be interesting to see to what effect it has on things. The last thing I wanted to mention, I was reading this today. More and more people are coming around on my Memorial Day date for Tiana's.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that I am on record as that being my guest for quite some time now. And I hope it hopefully comes true. Just because I can go, aha, I was finally right about something. I have I'm 1 out of 100 on guesses like this. So I'll take this one. But no, I'm excited about that. So hopefully they come out with, give me a reason to do like a 4-day trip in the summer this year and see if we can do something like that. Anything else you want to add to the rumor or speculation thing? Because it's going to lead right into our game of the week.
Nope, I can't think of anything else that kind of would qualify for this. The only thing I could think of, I mean, they could probably throw together some sort of summer after hours type thing as well.
Maybe.
But I don't
party?
know. Like a new summer party. Just kind of like nobody was expecting Jollywood nights, right?
Sure.
So maybe it could be the summer equivalent of that, but we'll see.
Why don't you set us up for the game?
Yeah, so the game is I'm calling it 3 wishes for Disney parks in 2024. We've done kind of predictions before, but that's more of what we think is going to happen. This is more what we want to happen. I was listening to a podcast about Royal Caribbean because we have our cruise coming up, and they did this. They were like, what are your 3 wishes? I guess they do it every year. 3 wishes for 2024. So obviously you need to keep it, somewhat realistic. It can be hopeful and optimistic, but it should be realistic. And of course, we have to follow the rules that was laid out by the genie. No killing anyone, can't make anybody fall in love with anybody else, and you can't bring people back from the dead. It's not a pretty picture.
So do you want to go back and forth, or each of us list 3 wishes?
Why don't we go back and forth?
Okay. So my first one was basically teased by my prediction. I wish for it to be, I wish for the ticket deals to go back to the way they were in 2019, where the quantity of tickets gives you a bigger break with the going back on, like, let's say 4 or 5 tickets is your break point versus 7, 8 where it is now.
Yeah.
And if you remember our old shows, going from like 5 tickets to 6 tickets cost the whole family of 5 at that point like an extra $50. Like there's throwing tickets at you to go an extra day versus now it's still like an extra $300-400 for your family to go an extra day at the 4 or 5 level. So that's my first wish.
Okay. I'll pick one that kind of related to what I was just talking about recently. But I do wish that Disney will do something with Paint the Night. It's such a great parade, and they just kind of have it sitting in a warehouse. Whether it's to Disneyland, Disney World, whatever, I think it's just something that deserves for people to see it on a regular basis. So my wish is that they do something with it in 2023.
This wish, the genie is definitely going to have to be on our side. I wish for this year that the D23 announcements that we see will make the vast majority of people happy and excited to be Disney fans again.
Yeah.
So we don't have to go through months of moaning and groaning about Iger and Josh and everybody else about how Disney is awful and everything else like this. I hope that it's whatever they announce at D23 are solid plans and no more blue sky and things that are things that are going to get people excited to be Disney fans again.
Yep.
Universally, not just like a couple people.
this will prove that we did not see each other's answers beforehand, because that's basically the exact same way I was thinking about for one of my wishes. I wrote it down as Disney delivers at the D23 Ultimate Fan Event, that people are left satisfied with what happens, especially with, they seem to be building it up with it being the biggest event ever and renting out that big arena for part of the events. Like, expectations are pretty high. And then, and everyone's definitely doesn't want a repeat of what the recent years have been with just Blue Sky and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So like you said, I hope Disney delivers, and, not that every single person's going to feel, that they're doing exactly what they wanted or anything like that. But at the end they walk away and say like, all right, they kind of hit everything. And I'm jazzed up again for the kind of the next coming years for Disney.
Yeah. I want, when we look, because last year, I think Matt did like an under-over and guesswork for on his podcast, and we did the same thing. And none of us were anywhere close to getting anything that we wanted out of that. So yeah, I'm totally with you on that one. And my last wish is kind of a hard one, because I have as much as I am optimistic about the parks, I'm still kind of pessimistic until proven otherwise. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm an optimist and a pessimist at the same time. I wish that there will be a reason for me to really want to go to the parks this year. Tiana's is not going to do it. As much as I can't wait to go and see the new Tiana's ride, that's not going to get me to go down there for like a 4-day trip type of quick turnaround and stuff like that. I wish I'm wishing that there's a reason to be like, oh, I really need to go. Whether that's a unique discount, though I'm not holding my breath on that, or that there's like something really cool going on that I'm like, I go to my wife, like, how about you and I go down for like 3 days to go check this out type of thing. So I'm looking for that the rumor, basically. I hope that's something that gets me to want to go down there for whatever cost it is.
Gotcha. Yeah. And my last wish is kind of similar just as far as mentality and reaction and response, but it's for the stuff that they are doing this year. Country Bears, and specifically Tiana's Bayou Adventure. I really wish that it gets done quicker than maybe some people are expecting. They hit that Memorial Day weekend or whatever, or at least the summertime, that it's not, November 30th or something. And that everyone, again, you're never going to have everyone. There are some people that are just going to be negative about everything, but the vast majority of people, even some that are maybe pessimistic about it, are like, they did a bang up job with it. This is a good attraction, that sort of thing. So that people are kind of, Disney over delivered on it from what some people are fearing it might be. So that's my last wish, is that Disney kind of delivers to a high degree on those two attractions, but specifically Tiana's.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of like a peace for all men type of Christmas hope and wish. Like, just everybody get what they want and be happy, and we can go back to like arguing about the dining plan on message boards, whether or not like all this other nonsense that's kind of going on. And this game, 3 Wishes for Disney Parks, is going to be our DBC engagement for the week. We're finally getting back to that after the holidays and the trip reports. So hop on to Discord and make sure you let us know what your 3 wishes are for the Disney parks in 2024. Remember, this is for 2024, not for 2025. And let's keep it realistic. Let's not be like, I wish there's like, a 6th gate coming along the line, 5th and 6th gate. Like, let's keep it within reasonable requests, because you can't kill anybody, you can't make anybody fall in love, we can't bring anybody back from the dead, and you can't wish for a 5th gate. Like, it's just not going to happen, right? We're just going to add that on to that. That being said, Phil, I think we're all finished for the week, unless I missed something. Question mark?
No, I think it's all good. But another reminder of our social media accounts, everywhere at the DBC Pod. Follow us, give us a like, and leave some comments here and on there. Let's engage.
Let's engage. That's great. Thank you for watching and listening, everybody. We appreciate your time, and we'll see you.
Bye, everyone.